apparently, if I lose against him, my career's done, and that means that no one will let me fight again, by the sounds of things. So all these narratives that they create, I just got to make sure that I live in my own realms. Like, this is a serious fighter, he's not a comeback fight, and I'm not going to lose. So there is no if, I've got to stay focused on winning.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Fighting Words. I'm your host, Chris Maxwell, joined by senior combat writer Andreas Hale and senior combat editor Tom Gray. Gentlemen, we are finally going to be seeing Anthony Joshua back in the ring this Saturday in London's O2 Arena. But it's not against Tyson Fury, and it's not against Deontay Wilder, and it's not against any of these fighters we wanted to see him against. It's against Jermaine Franklin. Jermaine Franklin may not be the ideal candidate for Anthony Joshua, but considering he has not won a professional fight since 2020, and this is his first fight back since 2 losses to Alexander Usyk, is there an ideal candidate to face the former heavyweight champ? And do you think it's fair to count Jermaine Franklin out so soon?
No, to be honest, I think it's a very dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua. We've seen that last time out with Franklin, he fought Dillian Whyte, pushed Dillian Whyte, who's a former world title challenger, to a majority decision, shook up Dillian Whyte in that fight, was in it for the full 12 rounds, thought he won. A lot of people thought it was a controversial decision. And it's interesting, you know, he's 7-1, Franklin, or 8-1 against. It would be interesting to see what those odds were if Franklin had got that decision, which he could have got. So I think it's a dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua. From what I've seen against Franklin and other opponents that he's faced, he's got good hand speed, good power, knows his way around the ring, and he's not afraid of him. So I think it's a dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua, but he shouldn't be having easy fights at this stage of his career in any case.
I'll agree to the point that Jermaine Franklin is the right opponent. I don't think he's necessarily dangerous, but I think he's the right opponent. If Canelo could fight John Ryder, Anthony Joshua could fight Jermaine Franklin. Like, I think after you go through so many wars and so many big name opponents, you get a little bit of a letdown fight. Anthony Joshua is entitled to that opportunity, but he should beat the hell out of Jermaine Franklin because this is a guy who's a former unified heavyweight champion of the world. His tune-up should feel like a tune-up. If he loses, that's another question entirely. But Jermaine Franklin's the right opponent. I just don't think he's dangerous. It's just somebody to get Anthony Joshua back into the win column.
And the fact that we're even... Oh, sorry, Tom.
You don't think that Franklin's got the power to hurt Joshua off of what you've seen in his career?
No, I don't. And if he does, then it's time for Anthony Joshua to call it a career. But we can talk about that in a minute. I'm just saying right now, Jermaine Franklin fought a Dillian Whyte that looked overweight and out of shape and pushed him to the limit. I remember Anthony Joshua sending Dillian Whyte to hell when Dillian Whyte was in shape. So Anthony Joshua should clean out Jermaine Franklin's clock. I don't think he should be dangerous.
Okay.
The fact that we're even having this conversation leads me to ask the question, is Anthony Joshua, or not even him as a fighter, but the legacy we all thought he was going to have and that he has created so far, is it overrated? Because if we look back at his resume, yes, he did have some big wins. And coming out of the Olympics, he was a household name with so much potential in front of him. But due to things outside of his control and some losses, especially the insane loss to Andy Ruiz that no one saw coming, he hasn't quite gotten those marquee fights against, again, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Now, I'm not saying that Wilder is off the table because I think that is still a fight that we all very much want to see. But when you look at his legacy and what he's done and the steps he's taking now, is Anthony Joshua overrated?
No, my outlook on this is I won't rate a legacy until it's complete. I mean, we are still in the midst of the Anthony Joshua era, the Tyson Fury era, the Deontay Wilder era, and Andreas will back me on this. You don't know what's coming round the corner in the next couple of years. Anything could happen. Deontay Wilder could get back in the mix and clean someone out with one punch. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I think Joshua to this point has had a fantastic career. He's a 2-time unified champion. He's defeated a host of Ring Magazine rated top 10 heavyweights and, you know, turned in some terrific performances, sold out massive football stadiums here in the UK. I think he's had a tremendous career to this point. I think politically things have let him down. You know, you can't blame Anthony Joshua for Tyson Fury all the way. You can't blame Anthony Joshua for Deontay Wilder all the way. It's just the way things are in the sport right now. We're deprived of big fights in every division, but I think Anthony Joshua's had a tremendous career to this point, and I think he's got the potential to end his career even better than what he is now.
Ooh, this is a tough one because, look, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's the bar they set for Anthony Joshua. Fair or not, they put a lot of expectations on Anthony Joshua, and the moment he lost to Andy Ruiz, and then the rematch, which wasn't that great, but Anthony Joshua played it safe and won, people looked at him as an overrated fighter. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of the way this thing goes, because the level they put him at, he was a world beater, and he was for the first half of his career. But down the stretch, he could still correct this. His legacy could still be great. It still could be phenomenal. He still has the greatest portfolio of current heavyweights right now. But those losses hurt. And the way people treated him like he was going to be the next Muhammad Ali, that was unfair to him. So in that regard, yeah, he's a little overrated. But to people who have a better mindset, who understand boxing, I think, Tom, you would agree with this. He's had a tremendous career, but I think people just put him a little bit too high and never expected him to lose ever.
Yeah, look, boxing fans are fickle. Where, like, because he lost a fight, the natural reaction is to get the knives out. Critics have been doing that to Anthony Joshua through every, downside that he's had, through every setback. Ruiz, that Carissa mentioned, Usyk on both occasions. Usyk, to my mind, is one fight away. If he beat Tyson Fury, he's an all-time great. How much of an embarrassment is that really to lose to this guy? Andy Ruiz, to me, felt like a blip at the time. He corrected it, even though it was not convincing. So, yeah, I think we need to get off his case. Anyone comparing Anthony Joshua to Muhammad Ali just needs to focus on a different sport. It doesn't even make sense at this point. That's just reality. So there is people that take things too far, but I still think he's an excellent heavyweight and one of the best of his generation. And like I say, he's got the potential to be even better down the stretch.
Now, there isn't as much hype around this heavyweight matchup as there normally would be. And I think that means there's a lot of extra pressure on AJ, though, because people are expecting him to win. However, if he does not, which again, we saw with Andy Ruiz, a major upset, if he does not win, is this the end of AJ's career?
Yeah. That's been my viewpoint on it, and he said it himself. If he loses to Jermaine Franklin, it was different with Ruiz, who was late replacement. Something seemed off about AJ that night. He lost his titles, had an immediate chance to come back. Right now, he's on the comeback trail. If you're on the comeback trail and get put even further behind, I just don't see how he can come back from that. I think his ego would be shattered. Unless you do a direct rematch with Jermaine Franklin, that's about the end of it. But to me, a loss to Jermaine Franklin at this point is a career ender for Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on this. A loss to Jermaine Franklin by AJ, but more importantly, everything we just talked about him being overrated, then it holds. If he loses another, that's 3 fights in a row. If you lose to Jermaine Franklin, who the hell is Jermaine Franklin? Now all the questions about his career and his legacy, it's okay to lose to Alexander Usyk. The Andy Ruiz thing, yeah, we could call it a blip. It's heavyweight boxing. But Jermaine Franklin? Bruh, it's a wrap. It's time to go home and time to pack it in. But now it's really time to look at that legacy and critique it properly, because maybe he was not as good as we thought. The resume was phenomenal. But losing to Jermaine Franklin and then having all these trainers as well, it's not a good look, bro. Not a good look.
And I can't help but feel for Jermaine Franklin, because should he be insulted that this is even the narrative around it, that a loss to him is the end of Anthony Joshua's career, someone who was so highly regarded in the heavyweight division? Should Jermaine Franklin be taking this as a chip on his shoulder to really go out and prove himself this weekend?
It's a brilliant question. And yes, I think as a fighter, fighters have tremendous egos. That's just the way it is. I think he would be horrendously insulted by probably what I've just said, that Anthony Joshua would need to step away. I think what it comes down to is, regardless of how good Jermaine Franklin is or turns out to be should he win this fight, he's still below the true elite level at heavyweight. He's not beaten a top heavyweight yet. So if he were to beat Joshua, you're looking at it saying, AJ, it's time to go. But that's not to say that Franklin from there couldn't go on to have a terrific career himself. It's just the timing of things. Joshua is a former 2-time unified champion. Like Andreas has implied, he's got no business losing this fight. So if he does, it's over. But yes, I think Jermaine would be insulted by it, but he'd probably understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, Jermaine Franklin shouldn't be insulted at all. You know who you are. You know why you're here and why you put in this fight. You were supposed to lose. You could be offended by that, but you know it. And if you get that win, You accept it. You know that you're the underdog. Look, March Madness, NCAA basketball, there are reasons why there are seeds, and a 15 seed ain't supposed to be the 2 seed. And they know that. Yes, you're supposed to come in expecting you're supposed to win, but you know that everybody thinks you're going to lose. Why be offended like before that? You're a 15 seed. Jermaine Franklin, you ain't supposed to be here, bro. If you get the job done, then you can say, I told you so. But right now, don't be offended. Embrace the underdog status.
I don't know if referring to March Madness this year is the best example or metaphor, because there was a ton of upsets. So hopefully that is not a bad omen for Anthony Joshua. And that leads me to the most important question of this entire show. I think we can all agree that we think Anthony Joshua is going to win, but the question is how? What is the fight night prediction? Is this going to be another close one, or is AJ going to come back and fully redeem himself, maybe with a knockout?
No, I think Joshua is going to win a close decision, and I'm not even coming close to writing Jermaine Franklin off. I think that Jermaine Franklin is the one with a lot to prove. No, sorry, that's the wrong way to put it. Jermaine Franklin is, to him, this is like a world title fight. To Joshua, it's a fight that's getting in the way of bigger fights. So I don't think he's as switched on as perhaps he should be, and I think that might show in the ring. And I think Jermaine Franklin's really going to bring the heat, and I'm not writing him off, but I think that Joshua, with home advantage, probably gets the nod.
I'm picking Anthony Joshua by knockout. Look, Anthony Joshua has been a knockout artist in the past, and I think he's pissed off, and I think he knows what's on the line. I don't think a close decision is acceptable. So you got to take it all the way to the tilt. You have to go for the knockout, and you got to finish this guy off to remind people who you are. If you cannot do that, you probably don't belong in the upper echelon of these heavyweights. You can't be in the same conversation if you're having close decisions with Jermaine Franklin. So AJ by knockout, I'm going to say 7th or 8th round. Yeah, I think he finished Kubrat Pulev in around 9. I think Jermaine Franklin's got his chin's not terribly terrific. I think AJ could finish this man off. He gets the job done inside of the distance.
The last time, not including Pulev, but before that, when he went for the knockout against Andy Ruiz after flooring him, he was caught on the counter, and it basically changed the trajectory of that fight. And I think that stayed with him. So I don't think he's confident getting in for the finish as ruthlessly as he was previous. And I think that no matter who trains him, I think he's always going to be cautious now. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Tom, you're probably right. He might be a little gun-shy, but that's unacceptable. Anthony Joshua by knockout. You got to get the job done. You have to.
Either way, Anthony Joshua's return to the ring this Saturday is either going to be the start of his redemption tour or the last stop on his farewell tour. We'll find out Saturday night at the O2 Arena in London. But for Fighting Words, I'm your host, Krista Maxwell. For Andreas Hale and Tom Gray, we will see you next week.